opportunity to make comments because Jack, of course, and Mary Ann and all the administrators will be working on this, continuing to work on this. I did have a conversation with Jack today. One of the things that's not reflected in this budget, and everybody may not share my attitude, is some sort of a cost share for our SRO, which is getting to be an issue. It would be contracted because it's still within the purview of the police department, but I happen to feel it's a very valuable safety situation. I had a conversation with Jack today. There are a variety of ways it can be handled. I said I'm not sure how other board members feel. I don't think we can sponsor the whole position because it's still in the purview of the PD. Who they have, who they train, who they deploy, all of that is within their purview. But if we could help sponsor that because we think it's a viable position, I'd like to at least have some consideration for that. And I had a conversation with Jack today and told him that I would bring that up. But it's really dependent on the view of the whole board as to what our participation can be.
I agree with you, Jeff, that we should pitch in,
see what we can do. It's still within the purview of the PD. It'd be contracted. It's their deployment, their personnel. They know who's certified, who's not certified. That's definitely their situation, not ours. However, if there's a place for us to participate in that, I'd like to see us try to include that. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm just throwing it out there as something that, as I was looking through.
How's it handled historically?
Contract, well, historically it's been supplied by the police department, but of course they've had difficulty this year because their budget's as tight as ours. And of course they went back to the town to help funding. And our position has always been that it's their, it's their charge, it's their personnel. They know, and an SRO is a certified position, you have to be trained to do that. But in the interest of fairness across the board and wanting this position, I feel it's invaluable at the high school. It brings us a lot of goodwill. It brings, I think, probably helps be preventative in a number of different ways that none of us could even imagine. And I think it would be good faith to participate if we can with an amount of money through contracted services, because it would still be with the police department. It's their purview. I also think that with our participation, it's a little bit more difficult to suddenly redeploy that person somewhere else because the Board of Education is participating. You know, I mean, there's method to my madness, but I think it's a very valuable position. So I've just asked Jack to revisit that and see if there are funds that we can help.
I agree. I think that with the person in place at Morgan, I think it's obviously to our advantage. And I agree that it's an invested interest for us, and I agree with them pulling the person out is less apt to happen if we have an invested interest in the person and having a contract, so to speak, with the police department to have that person on staff. You're having a contract, the person will be there Monday through Friday for however many hours. I think we should look to see what we can do.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I don't think we can fund it 100%, but
No,
I just asked Jack to see where we could tweak things and maybe find some so we have a good faith cooperation. The police department's been awfully good. We've met with them numerous times as the budget's got tighter and tighter, and they've tried to be creative, and we rotated people through, and that wasn't as effective as we had hoped it would be. It was good to have a presence up there, but I think a consistency in personnel is helpful as well.
I do too. I agree. That's my opinion. If you're looking for opinions.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it's a great, but it seems like the town and the Board of Education seems to do this cost share thing, and I wonder where the boundaries are going to end, where it's one pot of money, but it's split in so many different little, and it's mine, it's theirs, it's what. It's concerning to me.
I think that's.
But I do understand what you're saying about, you know.
I think that's a fair concern, you know, and that's why it is their purview, it is their personnel. But can we participate at an appropriate level? And that's right, you know, it all starts to get blurred. And
well, I think it's blurred on like so many different levels. I mean, we've helped with the lights on the fields, and we've helped with this, we've helped with that, and you know, I just wonder, you know, who's going to end up being the total responsibility of what should be. You know, it still is one pot of money. I'm sorry. But when you're dealing with two different budgets, it's getting confusing for, you know,
And I think, you know, my conversation, after chatting with Deb, I did talk to Todd this afternoon as well, for a couple of reasons. One, to solidify some dollars so that I would at least be able to speak to this this evening. But second, to really, you know, for us, for he and I, you know, making sure that we are still on the same page. And you know, I think your point is well taken, Kim, in that we both entered into this notion that it is in fact one pot of money, that it is, and he currently does agree, concurs, that that the position must remain a police department position. And so in the course of our conversation, you know, we looked at, you know, what are those scenarios that would, you know, make this even a reasonable concept. Currently in our budget line items in each of the buildings, we do have police services line. And, you know, we contract with the police for concerts, for sporting events, for various things during the course of the year. And it's not a lot of money, but it does, we get billed from them for those particular.
Can I just interject? Because from my understanding, they decide how many police officers come up for the games. It's not us. They
That's
decide,
true.
and you get billed, or we get billed.
That is
So
true.
they could have 4 or 5 that they deem necessary.
That, historically, that was the case. We've been much better with our current chief in terms of what the appropriateness is of
Because there's different
coverage.
levels of who's coming up and
Right.
what the pay scale is.
Right. And we, you know, we've still had that conversation on numerous occasions, because in some situations where you go to a football game or go to a basketball, you'd see more than one, and you think, well, what's the deal? And so that's been clarified, that at least at this point, I'm comfortable with the fact that the level of support that we're getting is, and what we're paying for is appropriate for the events. And sometimes the reality is that in their travels, they're making the loops, they're stopping and checking in, and you know, not to say that they're staying longer than one would expect, but the reality is that sometimes there are more than one, you know, maybe more than 1 or 2 at a particular event, but we're only being charged accordingly for what we believe is appropriate. So in my conversation with both Deb and Todd, you know, one of the thoughts was, you know, at very least, let's look at what proportionally it would reflect. I mean, one of the things that Todd is making a very good case for is that this is becomes in reality a kind of split position. In the summertime, when they have extra need at the PD for coverage, they would certainly have full access to this person for their full-time roles, overtime, and all of their normal duties in the summertime, as well as, you know, in an emergency situation, and, you know, as has always been the case, if, you know, they have a need, then that person's gonna go do what they need to do. Conversely, we've also been able to take advantage of their extra bodies when we have a need at the school. So right now, the salary component of the patrolman grade 2 or 3, all inclusive, you know, what it would cost. And this is not with regard to benefits, but their salary component for a grade 3 patrolman would be $54,756, and a patrolman grade 2 would be $63,788. Now the concept here is that we have essentially, you know, during the course of the school year, we have 37 weeks of school, effectively, 183 days. And so when you break that out, you know, it ultimately breaks down to about a little over $1,000 a week for the grade 3 patrolman, and a little over $1,200 for the grade 2 patrolman per week. And we didn't discuss, you know, specifically how we would do this, but, you know, what it boils down to, the full 37 weeks, if, you know, if we were looking at funding the full 37 weeks, would run between $39,000 and $45,000, depending on what grade the patrolman